Shalom, everyone. This is Brother Doug with the Awakened by Yahuwah Fellowship Group. We're continuing Enoch today. We're going to be starting chapter 90 right now. And me and my sister Shoshana are going to be splitting it up because it's 40 verses. It's a pretty big chapter. Our brother Dennis is right below us. So we are going to be starting chapter 90 right now. So let me put my share screen on so you viewers can read along with us. Make sure my sound is on the shared screen. Go to my PDF file here. There we go. All right, so I'll be reading the first 20 verses here, and here we go. And I saw till that in this manner 35 shepherds undertook the pasturing, and by number they completed their periods, as did the first. And others received them into their hands to pasture them for their period, each shepherd in his own period. And after I saw in my vision all the birds of the heavens coming, the eagles, the vultures, the hawks, the ravens, but the eagles led all the birds. And they began to devour those sheep and to peck out their eyes and to devour their flesh. And the sheep cried out because their flesh was being devoured by the birds. And as for me, I looked and lamented in my sleep over the shepherd who pastured the sheep. And I saw until the sheep were devoured by the dogs and eagles and hawks, and they left neither flesh nor skin nor sinew remaining on them, till only their bones stood there. And their bones too fell to the earth, and the sheep became few. And I saw until 23 had undertaken the pasturing and completed in their numbered periods 58 times. But see, lambs are born by those white sheep. And they began to open their eyes and to see and to cry to the sheep. Therefore they cried to them, but they did not listen to what they said to them, but were exceedingly deaf, and their eyes were exceedingly blind. And I saw in the vision how the ravens flew upon those lambs, and took one of those lambs, and dashed the sheep in pieces, and devoured them. And I saw till horns grew upon those lambs, and the ravens casted down their horns. And I saw till there sprouted a great horn of one of those sheep, and their eyes were opened, and it looked at them, and their eyes opened, and it cried to the sheep, and the rams saw it, and all ran to it. And notwithstanding all this, the eagles and vultures and ravens and hawks still kept tearing the sheep and swooping down upon them and devouring them. Still the sheep remained silent, but the rams lamented and cried out. And those ravens fought and battled with it, and sought to lay low its horn, and they had no power over it. And I saw till the shepherds and the eagles and the vultures and the kites came, and they cried to the ravens that they should break the horn of the ram, and they battled and fought with it. And it battled with them and cried that its help might come. And I saw till the man who wrote down the names of the shepherds and lifted up the presence of the masters of the sheep. And I saw till the master of the sheep came to them in wrath, and all who saw him fled, and they all fell from before his face. And all the eagles and vultures and ravens and hawks were gathered together, and there came with them all the sheep of the field, even all came together and helped each other to break the horn of the ram. And I saw the man who wrote the book according to the command of Yahuwah, till he opened the book concerning the destruction which those 12 last shepherds had worked, and showed that they had destroyed much more than their predecessors before the master of the sheep. And I saw till the master of the sheep came to them, and took in his hand the staff of his wrath, and smote the earth, and the earth broke apart, and all the beasts and all the birds of the heavens fell from among the sheep, and were swallowed up in the earth, and it covered them. And I saw till a great sword was given to the sheep, and the sheep proceeded against all the beasts of the field to slay them, and all the beasts and the birds of the heavens fled before their face. And I saw till a throne was erected, and in the pleasant land, and in the master of the sheep sat himself upon it. And the other took the sealed books and opened the books before the master of the sheep. I'll let Sister Shoshana take over. Verse 21.
White ones, and commanded that they should bring before him, beginning with the first star which led the way, all the stars whose privy members were like those of horses, and they brought them all before him. And he said to that man who wrote before him, being one of those 7 white ones, and said unto him, take those 70 shepherds to whom I delivered the sheep, who are taking them on their own authority, slew more than I commanded them. And behold, they were all bound, I saw, and they all stood before him, and the judgment was held first over the stars, and they were judged and found guilty, and went to the place of condemnation. And they were cast into an abyss, full of fire and flaming, and full of pillars of fire. And those 70 shepherds were judged and found guilty, and they were cast into that fiery abyss. And I saw at that time how a like abyss was opened in the midst of the earth, full of fire, and they brought those blinded sheep, and they were all judged and found guilty, and cast into this fiery abyss, and they burned. Now this abyss was to the right of that house. And I saw those burning sheep, and their bones burning. And I stood up to see till they all folded up their old house, and carried off all the pillars, and all the barns, all the barons, and ornaments of the house were at the same time folded up with it. And they carried it off and laid it in a place in the south of the land. And I saw till Yahuwah of the sheep brought a new house, greater and loftier than the first, and set it up in the place of the first, which had been folded up. All its pillars were new, and its ornaments were new, and larger than those of the first, the old one which he had taken away, and all the sheep were within it. And I saw all the sheep which had been left, and all the beasts on the earth, and all the birds of the heavens, falling down and doing homage to those sheep, and making petition to, and obeying them in everything. And thereafter those 3 who were clothed in white, and had seized me by my hand, who had taken me up before, and the hand of that ram also seizing hold of me, they took me up and set me down in the midst of those sheep before the judgment took place. And those sheep were all white, and their wool was abundant and clean, and all that had been destroyed and dispersed, and all the beasts of the field, and all the birds of the heaven assembled in that house. And the master of the sheep rejoiced with great joy, because they were all told and had returned to his house. And I saw till they had laid down that sword which had been given to the sheep, and they brought it back into the house, and it was sealed before the presence of Yahweh. And all the sheep were invited into that house, but it held them not. And the eyes of them all were opened, and they saw the toad, and there was not one among them that did not see. And I saw that that house was large and broad and very full, And I saw that a white bull was born with large horns. And all the beasts of the field and all the birds of the air feared him and made petition to him all the time. And I saw till all their generations were transformed, and they all became white bulls. And the first among them became a lamb, and that lamb became a great animal, and had great black horns on its head. And the master of the sheep rejoiced over it, and over all the oxen. I slept in their midst, and I awoke and saw everything. This is the vision which I saw while I slept, and I awoke, and Baruch, Yahuwah of righteousness, and gave him esteem. Then I wept with a great weeping, and my tears stayed not, till I could no longer endure it. When I saw, they flowed on account of what I had seen, for everything shall come and be fulfilled, and all the deeds of men in their order were shown to me. On that night I remembered the first dream, and because of it I wept and was troubled, because I had seen that vision. So basically it appears that he saw the vision all the way up until the end of all the sheep that would be destroyed by the evil beast, which is really just unconverted men who would tear at them until they lost their sight. So please do not allow evil men to take away your sight. If you have the truth, hold on to it. I think that's the main moral of the story, although he's not really telling a story, he's telling a true thing that happens, that there will be many who will fall away. But in the very end, there won't be any falling away. What do you see, Doug?
Oh, there was a lot in that chapter. There was like at least multiple visions. One vision was talking about the Watchers being chained in Tartarus. Talks about the stars that led them astray were put in the abyss. So you had that vision, and then you had these other visions probably from the time of Genesis all the way to the end. This one big vision that we just read. So there is a lot of stuff prophetically. He's using in parables basically to explain to people why they would use animals and stuff like that. A lot of times in prophecy, sometimes they're using metaphors, like they were using metaphors like sheep and lambs as for people, beasts to describe people that are wicked, like beasts talking about that. Well, you have vultures. Vultures are known as unclean. So you had like unclean animals probably being used to describe sinners in that parable. So I saw a lot of metaphor type of language, a lot of allegories in those parables. But I noticed
sinners, but they were pulling the sheep away from the Creator. They were actually attacking the sheep who loved the Creator and knew Him, and many of them fell away because of it. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah. Sally, do you have anything to add?
I don't think She's not here. Oh, if I muted or unmuted. Sally's not here.
She never came back.
No. Dennis, do you have anything to add?
A lot of symbolism there.
Well, the most important thing I got out of it was the fact that all the sheep who knew Yahweh were attacked by the sheep who did not know Yahweh. Not sheep, I mean vultures and pigs and all unclean animals attacked them, and many of them fell away. But let that not be you and me that fall away.
Well,
Yeah.
also ones that didn't know him, because it says that the children were blind, they couldn't hear. So spiritually, that's talking about people that don't know the truth, that are blind. When you're blinded by Satan, in the scripture, it says that there were scales over unbelievers' eyes. So I think it actually has to do with, too, the fact that these wicked people are actually making people blind, technically, and it could be referring to the last generation, that this generation of mine even is kind of like that. They're born with their eyes blind, their ears are deaf, they don't know the truth. They don't even know it, even if it's put right in front of them. They're blind to it spiritually.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And you are a wonder among your generation.
I appreciate that compliment. But Brother Dennis, did you get anything that we might have forgot about before we start this new session here? We got about like 5 minutes before we start a new session. So if you got anything that you would like to add?
Not too much, but it was interesting that all the unclean animals attacked the followers of Yahusha, the sheep.
Yeah, I see that's obviously a metaphor for the wicked. That's definitely why I think the metaphors of a clean animal versus unclean animal was being used, just like how Yahusha calls us his sheep, and he calls basically wicked people wolves, brood of vipers, children of a snake. So there's definitely even animal allegories in scripture used for the wheat and the tares.
What bothered me about it is the fact that when they were attacked, they allowed themselves to fall away. And then they were held accountable for falling away. At the end, they were thrown in the lake of fire. So we cannot let anyone lead us astray, because we're held accountable for what we know. No matter what anybody says or does to us, we are held accountable. I can see that right here. If you don't hold fast to what you believe,
Accountable
you can
to
be
death.
you can be thrown in the lake of fire with those who don't believe at all. So hold fast that which you believe. Never let go.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this chapter. I think we're going to start a whole new meeting. That way we can fit the whole next couple of chapters in on our part 2 in this study, because right now we have very limited time. So stay tuned, everyone. We're going to be back very shortly to start our part 2, and we're going to be reading from chapter 91. So stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back.